You know, when I first inherited the hops farm, Thorns Ridge, the whole valley felt like a gift. A promise my granddad made to the dirt 50 years ago. But the real treasure wasn't the acreage, it was the road. We called it the old supply line. It wasn't on any fancy Blackwood Valley subdivision map, just a 2-track dirt ribbon hugging the creek bed. Quiet, loyal. That road carried everything. The first irrigation pipes, the wedding party when my folks got married, and yeah, even my old man's casket when we laid him to rest beneath that big juniper on the rise. For generations, the heavy trucks only ran a few weeks a year during harvest. Those crisp September mornings when the cones are fat and sticky. The rest of the time, it was just a memory, a scar of purpose in the land. We never asked permission. You didn't. This was farm country long before the HOA, the Silver Creek Estates, started building those stucco boxes with the matching mailboxes. My farmhouse actually sits just outside their line, but the old supply line cuts right through this forgotten, overgrown corner, near the storm drain retention pond they built. And that right there is where the whole thing went sideways. 10 years ago, the HOA was nothing. Now they've got money, a management company, and a queen, Vivian Sterling. Picture it. Tight blonde hair, always rocking a pale lavender cardigan, and clutching an iPad like it's the scepter of her little kingdom. She'd been HOA president for 6 solid years, and her power wasn't police force, it was exhaustion. Most folks were too busy, too tired to fight the fines, too scared to show up at a meeting. I just kept my head down, ran my farm, and watched the hops grow tall and stubborn. This year, the harvest was perfect. 6 haul trucks, 4 seasonal pickers, the whole operation lined up tight. I walked the supply line that morning, boots still wet with dew, coffee in hand. Peaceful the way it ought to be. And then I saw it, a sign. Bright red, staked into the soil like a goddamn declaration of war. HOA private access. No commercial through traffic. My blood just stopped. This road was never posted, never maintained by them. I'd patched the potholes myself for years. Then I heard the smug little whir of her golf cart coming over the rise. Vivian pulled up slow like she was inspecting a felony. No wave, just that look. The look that says you are inconvenient. You can't run your trucks through here anymore, Jasper, she said. I blinked. Vivian, this is my access road. It's an easement. She gave me that infuriating, tight little HOA smile. Actually, the board voted. Heavy agricultural equipment violates the new noise and aesthetic ordinance, and she handed me a printed letter, pre-folded, pre-stapled. She had planned this. I tried to keep the soldier discipline. Vivian, this road predates your golf cart. She just shrugged, already reversing the cart. Maybe you should have paved it if you wanted to keep it. And she was gone. The next morning, the chain was up. Not a lightweight link either. A thick, rusty coil wrapped around 2 newly installed wooden posts, padlocked like a bank vault. They'd hired someone overnight. The first truck arrived, the driver confused. My crew standing there awkward, uncertain. I had to send them home. The loss was immediate and crippling. You don't pause a hop harvest. Every day delayed means reduced quality, lower prices, higher risk. That night, staring at the moonlight on that sealed road, I felt the familiar burn of powerlessness. Not against a government or a corporation, but against a woman with a clipboard and a grudge. But then, the old training kicked in. I've navigated convoys across minefields. I've rebuilt FOBs in the middle of nowhere. I wasn't going to be stopped by a suburban tyrant in a lavender cardigan. I dug out the old army locker, pulled the land documents, the satellite overlays. I scanned the HOA bylaws, and I found it. The original pre-subdivision access easement my father had foresightedly buried in the county records. The HOA could build their stucco paradise, but the supply line remained unimpeded. I emailed the whole mess to Jerome Keller, a legendary slow-moving land use attorney. 2 hours later, the reply, "You have a clear right. Their signage is not enforceable. Be cautious. They may escalate." Oh, she escalated. 3 days later, the fine arrived. $250 for unauthorized commercial staging. My rented grain trailer, parked on my own goddamn field where it always sits. That's when I knew this wasn't about the road. It was about me, the stubborn farmer who refused to attend her meetings, who ruined the community aesthetic. I went to see my neighbor Mac, ex-city police, lives 4 doors down. He was drinking a root beer in his garage. "She's been itching for a fight, Jasper," he whistled, looking at the fine. She tried to make the mailman walk his route backward because she didn't like his parking. "You're just the next thing on her list. Mac told me to call Sheriff Dax. We served together. Logistics. Brilliant. Quiet. 3 steps ahead of everyone. I wrote Dax a long email that night. Not a complaint, a reconnection. I attached the HOA letters, the deed, and an old photo of us from a dusty Thanksgiving overseas. The reply came quickly. I remember that road. Got time at 4. Let's talk. 4 o'clock the next day, I was at the county building. Dax greeted me the way veterans do. Quick hug, hard pat on the shoulder, eyes scanning yours for the truth. I laid the documents on his desk like a casualty report. "You're in the right," he said, tapping the easement agreement. "But Vivian's not going to give up easy." "I know," I replied. "She's escalating," and she did. She put up bright orange traffic cones and plastic fencing, then new signs: farm vehicle access prohibited, violators towed. She even listed a towing company. I called the owner. He was embarrassed, said Vivian swore she had jurisdiction. I told him to stay away, but the sign stayed up. Then came the concrete. On Monday morning, I found the supply line chained again, only this time it was heavy steel cable and permanent concrete posts poured overnight, fresh rebar sticking out of the base. She had hired a contractor, building a literal wall. Then I saw the final laminated notice, $500 fine for continued misuse of shared infrastructure. That was the line. I stood there, listening to the lonely hum of a grain truck idling near the barn, waiting for permission to work my own land. The pressure of financial, emotional, psychological. It was crushing. This wasn't just property. This was my father's legacy. The sky was heavy the next morning, thick with the kind of gray that tells a farmer, you're done. Rain was coming, the kind that drowns a crop, not blesses it. I stood at the field's edge, watching the wheat shimmer gold, stubborn against the wind and the bureaucracy, but my truck was idle. The concrete was set. The cable was strung tight like a tripwire. My crew was gone, except for one man, Miguel. Loyal, steady, but even Miguel had his limits. He stood on the porch, hat in hand. I can't wait, senor. My cousin needs help. I nodded, shook his hand, and watched his pickup disappear. Then, I was truly alone. I sat in the barn, the doors open, listening to the rain pound the roof, knowing thousands of dollars worth of hops were rotting in the field. It felt like watching your life savings sink slowly into the ocean and being legally forbidden from grabbing a life preserver. Vivian had won, or so it seemed. I ignored her latest fine, $750 for soil erosion concerns. She was fining me for the damage she caused. On the 4th morning, a familiar engine sound cut through the quiet. A county truck, then another, and then Sheriff Dax. He stepped out of his black SUV, coat slung over his shoulder, a clipboard in hand. He didn't smile, just nodded. "Get your gear ready," he said. "It's time," I blinked.
You serious?
He held up a signed court order. Temporary injunction. Emergency access granted. HOA barriers must be removed. Judge didn't like what he saw. Behind him, 3 yellow bulldozers, county issue, rumbled to life. The sound shook the air. It was thunder, but this time it brought hope. Just ahead, right where the illegal gate had been half installed, was Vivian Sterling, arms crossed, lips pressed tight, golf cart abandoned like a fallen chariot. She saw the Dozers. She saw Dax. Dax walked directly to me. "Got the final injunction signed this morning, Jasper. County judge authorized immediate enforcement. The road is yours." He nodded crisply to the first Dozer driver and stepped aside. The machine moved forward with deliberate, silent grace. The treads pressed deep into the clay. The blade hit the base of the concrete posts with a thunderous crack, sending chunks of cement flying. The steel cable snapped with a sharp twang. Vivian screamed. Not a word. A raw, broken sound. A howl of disbelief, of sacred power being ripped from her hands. She rushed toward the Dozer, arms flailing. "Stop, you can't. This is community property." Dax stepped between her and the machine, calm but firm. "Ma'am, step back. This action is backed by a court order." She shoved a letter at him, probably from her lawyer. Dax didn't flinch. "Ma'am," he repeated, "step back." She froze. Her eyes darted between the sheriff, the Dozer, and me, standing there, arms crossed, finally unmoving. Something in her broke. Like a tire going flat, she stepped back. The second Dozer rolled in, flattening the remaining posts. The third scraped the gravel clean. All that remained was the open road, wide, dusty, and mine. They didn't stop. County workers laid fresh gravel, regraded the drainage ditch, and installed reflective markers. For the first time in years, the supply line didn't just exist. It was official, legal, undeniable. Vivian stood by her golf cart the entire time. arms limp at her sides, her face locked in that stunned silence people wear when they realize the world no longer bends to them. It wasn't anger, it was defeat. Then near the tree line, something incredible happened. Neighbors began to gather. Mac, Cheryl, the young couple, and faces I didn't recognize. They stood watching the road become whole again, and then they started clapping. Not wildly, but a steady, warm wave of approval for a wrong that had been corrected. That afternoon, Dax and I walked the newly cleared road. "You did more than win a land dispute, Jasper," he said. "You reminded a whole neighborhood that they have a voice." "I didn't mean to start anything," I replied. "Exactly," he said. That's why it worked. 2 days after the bulldozers, the petition to recall Vivian Sterling hit every doorstep in Silver Creek. Mac and Cheryl organized the delivery. Abuse of power, unauthorized construction, harassment. By the third day, the HOA board was forced to schedule a mandatory meeting. The first one in years not led by Vivian herself. I went. I sat in the back, the room packed. Vivian stood up, voice sharp and brittle. Recent events have caused confusion, fueled by misinformation. She didn't get far. My attorney, Keller, stood up near the back. "Excuse me," he said, calm as always. "The court has ruled, Mrs. Sterling, the road is not under review." The obstruction was removed legally. Vivian's face went white. She tried to yell, "This isn't a courtroom!" "No," Keller replied. "But it's still America, and these homeowners have rights." A ripple of applause spread through the room, faster than she could stop it. She slammed the gavel. "This is my meeting." "No," said a quiet board member beside her. "This meeting belongs to the community." That's when Vivian had her final collapse. She rose, pointing directly at me, her voice cracking. "You're all ungrateful. I've kept people like him from ruining our way of life." I stood slowly, not to confront, just to rise. "I'm a farmer," I said calmly. "This land was here before any HOA existed. It'll be here long after the last fine is written." Vivian sank back into her chair, breathing heavily. A voice from the crowd said, "Let's vote." The recall was unanimous. Vivian was suspended. She sold her house fast, surprisingly fast, and moved out within a week. No goodbye, just a "for sale" sign where her golf cart used to sit. The first good rain came that night. Not the kind that floods, but the kind that soaks deep into the soil. I sat on my porch watching the water drip, the fields shimmering silver. My road wasn't just open. It was respected. The county marked it officially on their maps. Thorne's supply line. Historic agricultural route. Mac and the neighbors surprised me with a proper wooden sign. 2 months later, we held the Silver Creek Harvest Homecoming right on the newly opened land. Neighbors brought casseroles, the high school band played. I looked out at the lights, the laughter, the people who were once strangers or enemies, now standing shoulder to shoulder, sipping hot cider. Dax showed up later, out of uniform. "You ever wonder why I brought 3 bulldozers that day, Jasper?" He smirked. I looked at him sideways. "Overkill?" "I knew," he said, taking a sip of cider. "She'd scream louder than one could handle." We laughed, the sound mingling with the guitar near the fire pit. This story isn't about a road, or a gate, or even a woman named Vivian who thought she could own what wasn't hers. It's about standing firm when the world tries to push you out. It's about remembering that silence isn't peace. And it's about the truth. It always holds, especially when the bulldozers come. The harvest will come again. The fields will rise, and this land, our land, will never forget who stood for it. But what about you? Have you ever had to fight a ridiculous battle just to protect a simple truth? Was it an HOA, a local council, or something personal? Did you win? Let me know in the comments below, because sometimes knowing you're not the only one fighting the good fight is all the strength you need. Like and subscribe if you want to see more stories of the small guy pushing back against the system.